Welcome back to the TWSN YouTube channel. We're continuing our countdown until the NFL draft. We are on, I believe, day 12 here, which is the Houston Texans pick, but that pick originally belonged to the Cleveland Browns. So, I'm going to be rolling with the Browns today. And as you can see, the Browns do not pick for a while. Their first pick comes at 74. So, again, the Browns are in a very weird position. We all know the Deshaun Watson stuff. They've brought in some good quality win now players, but as a result of all of that, you do not pick until 74. To their credit, they still have, I believe, 8 picks used along the way. So if they want to move up higher in the draft, they could probably do so. But again, we're not going to be doing any trades in these mock drafts. Let's just get right into it. Here at 74, it's the first pick is not till 74. It's still crazy to me. And it's never not going to be crazy to me. This team really needs some interior help one way or the other. They just do. It's, for me, it's one of their bigger needs. I think it's probably their biggest needs. I'm going to give them Zach Pickens from South Carolina. He's your 3 tech that can do a little bit of everything. You're not going to play him over the nose overly much. Probably not at all, really. But there's some times maybe if you want to on passing downs. But he's a high upside guy. And I think when you pair a high upside guy alongside some of the talent on the defensive line, especially with Myles Garrett, he can learn from Dalvin Tomlinson a little bit. Just being in the room with those guys can really help a young 3 tech like him develop into something that is really scary. I think the upside flashes all the time on the tape with him. He flashes dominance quite often. He just has to learn to hone into that more often so he can be a complete player all the time. Here at 98, I do think that is their biggest need. And then, I probably will be double dipping, maybe even triple dipping into the defensive line edge room. I know receiver is not like the biggest need for them anymore. They have Cooper, Elijah Moore, Donovan Peoples-Jones. Like, that's a solid 3. I think, maybe we can add some height in the later rounds. But I'm not going to be tackling it too soon. Henley right here is pretty interesting to me. I think he's a great fit there in Cleveland. I'm honestly kind of tempted to go right back into this edge room already. If I'm really being honest, and I'm going to give him Zach Harrison. Again, I think there's a good argument that he was just best player available there on the board. It's a need for them to give you another edge rusher, some defensive line help. And he's really good. Like, I know he's a little bit older, but he's just good. He's got long arms. He's an athlete. He just do a lot of things really well, and I don't like that's pretty awesome when you can find a guy that does a lot of things really well. So really good first 2 picks there to really help Cleveland in the trenches on the defensive side of football. Now here again at 111, you're getting into some because like I said, Cleveland's such a their roster so well built, but not at the same time. They have a lot of, I don't know, Cleveland's just kind of good. I just think they need to perform better at the end of the day. So, I was looking at some of their needs here. Yeah, they could, like I said, you could maybe argue they need a receiver, but do they really need a receiver that bad? I'm not really sure. I'm gonna look in the wide receiver room here a little bit. I think Marvin Mims is phenomenal. But the fit in Cleveland, he's essentially Elijah Moore. You just traded for Elijah Moore. You're really going to get that. If there's anything I'd be looking at, a receiver down the board like a Bryce Ford Wheaton, that bigger body guy that they don't necessarily have. But obviously, that's a little early for him here, maybe with one of the next few picks. Cleveland needs defensive line help so bad that it's really hard to think about anything else for them. Their running back depth is, they drafted Jerome Ford last year, so it's not like a pressing need by any means. Obviously, they have Nick Chubb, who is phenomenal as well, but, they still kind of need some – he always needs a compliment. They always kind of use obviously Kareem Hunt's still out there. Maybe they end up bringing him back, but for now, he is not on the team. So we're going to continue to look at that area as well. I think I might be looking at some of these linebackers here. I think that's what I'm going to do. And there's some good one. I'm gonna go this linebacker from Auburn here. They just need, like I said, they don't need any, like, they have their needs, but Cleveland is a really well built roster. They need some more, like, these guys that they're drafting here. If I draft a linebacker, you're like, linebacker's like not that big of a need, but it could be in a year. Nah, we don't really need a receiver, but like, if somebody gets hurt, they're screwed. I think from here on out, just be filling out the roster with quality depth, with some potential ability to be mixed in as starters. So it's going to be a little bit of a weird job, but that's a good position to be in if you are Cleveland, especially since you did trade away all your top picks. You're really going to hone in on some quality depth with some upside, with some safety mixed in. So stay with me if you see a pick that seems a little crazy based on what they need, the players in that room. It doesn't really matter. We need to do something a little different for Cleveland. No, I mean some of their secondary has been pretty good over the last few years, but it seems like it's a room they always want to keep adding to. So that's something I'm definitely taking note of here. I think tight end is kind of an interesting need for them as well. It's not really a need. They have Harrison Bryant, who hasn't really developed into what they wanted him to be. They signed David Njoku, obviously, to the extension. So I think that is, you know, he's their guy. But again, they're a team that runs two tight end sets quite often. So it's definitely a possibility there. Um, I'm tempted to honestly triple dip already within the defensive line. And you know what? I'm going to take Byron Young from Alabama. He's more of your true over the tackle kind of guy, which is why I feel comfortable doing it again. I know they signed Dalvin Tomlinson, but again, these are things that they need people for the future too. Like, this team is gonna be expensive to keep. They need contributors in important positions forever. So I think getting a nose of the future potential with him, with your 3 tech, with a solid edge rusher, like, you're preparing for your future trench players, and I think that's always important when you are a contending team like Cleveland really wants to be. And you know, I wasn't necessarily considering this style of running back, but Kendry Miller here is very interesting to me just because he's not necessarily similar to Nick Chubb, but he kind of has some skills like him, bigger, good contact balance guy. But I think they really like the complement style more of their running backs. I think Jerome Ford can kind of be a little bit of both, neither that great of either. But I do think that is something that is interesting in that way. And I know it's a little bit early here, but I'm gonna give him Bryce Ford Wheaton down at 140. I know he's ranked a little lower, but again, I don't think wide receiver is the biggest need for this team. I like Cooper. I like Moore. I like DPJ, but he is a style receiver that they don't really have. He's your big physical, big body receiver, but he still has plenty of speed as well. He can be a little bit of a matchup nightmare for people if he develops nicely. And again, he's a person that can develop. You don't necessarily need him year one, but he can contribute year one if need be. 3 more picks here for Cleveland. They pick a lot in this, 4th and 5th round, which is good. When you don't have a lot of early picks, you want to make sure you still have a lot of picks in the mid to late rounds, and they do just that. Again, I'm sure they'll move up and down a little bit. But I'm really looking at some of these running backs and some compliments. I'm gonna compliment their Nick Chubb with a Keaton Mitchell from East Carolina. I know their running backs are always weird. It's never a position of need because they have Nick Chubb, and he is one of the best running backs, if not the best running back in the NFL. But Keaton Mitchell can provide that lightning to Nick Chubb's thunder a little bit. Keaton Mitchell is extremely fast. He's a guy that you don't have to really get that many touches to. Just get him the ball from time to time. Let him be explosive. Let him catch some passes. Just let him spell Nick Chubb, and he can give you that home run ability, when you need it. And I think that is exactly what Keaton Mitchell can bring to this Browns team as a phenomenal complement to Nick Chubb. And I do want to add a tight end to this team. I'm going to add Davis Allen right here. Again, he's very similar to Hunter Bryant, really, in my opinion. No, but Hunter Bryant, are you really going to resign him? Even if you do, the Browns love their tight ends. You're taking one at 190. Davis hasn't, the production's been interesting. The profile's interesting. He doesn't have, I don't really know how I feel about his ceiling in the NFL. I know he could be solid, but I think, if he is in a position where he can really learn from a David Njoku to kind of develop that side of his game, I think he could develop nicely. And at the very least, again, Cleveland loves their tight end. You're taking a higher, you're taking an interesting flyer on a guy that has some potential. You just got to hope that your, Pro Bowl tight end can really unlock that. Again, I don't know why he's fallen so far in these drafts. He will not be here this late. But here at 229, I know Cleveland likes their their secondaries and kind of the way Cleveland's been drafting. Again, I'm be the first to tell you they don't necessarily need this player, but it just with the history of how they draft, they always continue to like to bring in new bodies in the secondary. Corey Trice from Purdue feels like a player the Browns like. He's a big 6'3" corner that runs extremely fast. And I think Cleveland, we saw with Martin Emerson last year, another bigger corner that runs pretty fast. And I think Trice is probably a better athlete than Emerson. Obviously, Emerson's tape is better and all that. But again, Browns always kind of like to add that room all the time. So this is a pretty interesting draft for the Browns because I think we all know they're in a very interesting position regardless. The Deshaun Watson, the Elijah Moore trades, all these things have, taken all of their top picks away from them. They don't come in until 74. But, I mean, to be honest with you, these first 4 picks for the Browns fill a lot of needs. Again, it's a draft that's not only for now, but they have to position themselves nicely for the future because their team is going to just get more and more expensive. I think this draft really does a nice job at helping now, but really preparing them for the future as well. Cleveland can go a lot of directions. They can move up, they can move down, they can continue to trade these picks for players. Right now, I like how this Cleveland Browns team specific 7-round mock draft played out. Like, we're going to be hitting on all the teams as we count down until the NFL draft. So if you do not want to miss your team specific 7-round mock draft, make sure you follow along on all the TWSN social medias. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys here again on the TWSN YouTube channel soon.